Have you ever stopped to think about the true power of Solomon's ring? That piece of jewelry, considered by many to be a key to divine mysteries, would not be just an ordinary object. Imagine if, in fact, it was the central point of an ancient pact, something so deep and complex that it could alter all humanity's perception of what is divine and what is evil. Did Solomon, the wisest man of all time, really receive his power directly from God? Or was there another obscure path to obtaining so much knowledge and power? This is not a simple biblical tale, but a mystery that spans centuries and which raises more questions than answers. When we talk about Solomon, we talk about a king who not only ruled wisely, but who, according to ancient reports, had control over forces that defied the laws of nature and even time. But what if these forces weren't so divine? What if Solomon's covenant was more complex than we imagine, more than simple spiritual powers? What if he had made deals with entities other than God? Brace yourself, because the answers to these questions could change everything you know about Solomon's secrets, the mysteries of his wisdom, and the true meaning of his ring. Imagine yourself in ancient Jerusalem, a place full of mysteries and reverence. In the center of this vibrant city, Solomon, a king shrouded in legend, builds a temple that, they say, was built not just with stone and wood, but with the aid of forces that escape human comprehension. In his hands, a shining ring with an enigmatic symbol, a gift from Michael, the archangel. It is said that this object was capable of bending demons to its will, as if they were mere pawns on a cosmic board. But here's the question no one dares to ask. Could this ring be more than a sacred artifact? Perhaps something closer to advanced technology, lost to the sands of time? The accounts in Solomon's Testament speak of this ring as a key to controlling spirits, demons, and even the forces of nature. Interestingly, similar stories emerge in different cultures. In ancient Greece, the ring of Gyges offered invisibility to whoever wore it, a tempting power for mortals and gods alike. Who knows? Perhaps the two rings are echoes of the same occult knowledge, so dangerous that it was censored by religious leaders and kept out of reach of the masses? After all, what's scarier? A ring that controls spirits or an ancient civilization with access to a science we haven't even begun to understand? What if we say that Indian Vedic texts also describe artifacts with almost magical properties? The so-called Vimanas, flying vehicles of the gods, seem eerily similar to technologies we would now associate with science fiction. Could Solomon's ring be a piece of this same global narrative of excluded knowledge? It's fascinating to think that such a small object could contain such immense secrets, capable of rewriting our understanding of human history. But here's the real provocation. Why were stories like this one, of Solomon's ring, persecuted and relegated to the realm of folklore or superstition? It could be argued that there is more at stake than simply preserving faith. Controlling knowledge is controlling power, and nothing is more dangerous to a ruling elite than a public that understands the true potential of tools like this. Perhaps the ring didn't just build Solomon's temple. Perhaps it challenged the established order by offering a glimpse of something forbidden. And while we reflect on these possibilities, the question remains, could the true secret of the ring go even deeper? Would it be a symbolic artifact, representing Solomon's pact with the divine, or proof of a connection with intelligences from another plane? Perhaps the answer lies in the next mystery. The spirits subjugated by Solomon. Who were they really, and where did they come from? Imagine Solomon, at the height of his glory, sitting on his throne, surrounded not by mere human servants, but by entities that defied the laws of nature. The Testament of Solomon narrates the existence of 72 spirits or demons that he controlled to carry out his monumental works. But what is most intriguing is not just the power that Solomon possessed, but the description of these entities themselves. With strange names, hybrid forms, and specific abilities, they look more like visitors from an unknown plane than the demons feared in conventional biblical narratives. These spirits, also mentioned in Solomon's clavicle, appear to obey an almost scientific system of rules, where each invocation must be made with mathematical precision. And therein lies the mystery. How could a man who lived thousands of years ago have access to such detailed knowledge, which transcends superstitions and approaches the descriptions of interdimensional entities in modern quantum physics? Could it be possible that Solomon was dealing with beings that did not belong to our world, but to parallel realities that escape human perception? There is something deeply disturbing and at the same time fascinating about the fact that many of these entities described by Solomon appear in different cultures. Whether in Mesopotamia, Egypt, or even in apocryphal texts, we find figures with similar characteristics. This raises a question. Were these entities archetypes of the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung proposed, or evidence of forbidden knowledge that has been censored over the centuries? Perhaps the answers are hidden, masked by layers of symbolism and religious metaphors. And what about the relationship between these spirits and multiple dimensional theories? Some scholars suggest that these entities could be travelers from parallel universes, crossing into our plane through precise rituals, such as those described in Solomon's clavicle. This idea calls into question the traditional view of demons as purely evil creatures, suggesting that they could be beings with a greater purpose, perhaps even incomprehensible to us. Solomon would have been an intermediary, a link between worlds separated by veils of reality. Now, think about this. What if Solomon's true power was not in controlling these spirits, but in knowing their origins and intentions? This perspective completely changes the narrative, transforming the king into a cosmic explorer rather than a mere biblical sorcerer. But to understand what Solomon knew, we need to investigate what was deliberately hidden from us. Perhaps the key lies in the next mystery, the enigmatic lost book of Solomon. After all, what did it contain, and why was it so fiercely hidden? Imagine a manuscript so powerful that its mere existence could transform the way we understand the world. The so-called Book of Solomon, mentioned in ancient texts such as Flavius Josephus's Jewish Antiquities, is an enigma that haunts historians and mystics. This book, according to reports, held magical and spiritual secrets that explained how Solomon controlled invisible forces. But the big question is not just what it contained, but why it was destroyed, hidden, or, who knows, kept under lock and key in some unreachable safe. The idea of a book containing such advanced knowledge is not unique. Throughout history, we hear about works like the Book of Thoth in Egypt, which promised divine powers, or the Lost Library of Alexandria, which supposedly held texts that could change humanity. Would the Book of Solomon be another victim of religious censorship, destroyed to protect an elite who feared the dissemination of hidden knowledge? Or was he a fundamental piece of history, carefully removed from the scene to preserve dominant narratives? Fragments of what this book could be are found in grimoires such as Solomon's Clavicle. However, what we have today are just shadows of the original, full of dubious translations and esoteric additions. What would have been removed or modified over the centuries? There are those who believe that the Vatican keeps this text among its secret archives, along with other prohibited documents, such as the Gnostic texts from Nag Hammadi. The very idea that a sacred text has been censored sends shivers down your spine. What could be so dangerous that it deserves to be erased from history? If we look at the period in which Solomon lived, we see a world in transition, with cultures colliding and religions trying to establish themselves as absolute truths. A text like the Book of Solomon, which united spirituality, magic, and science, would be a direct threat to this religious monopoly. It could have been hidden not only because of its content, but because it challenged the power structures of the time, opening space for interpretations contrary to dominant narratives. And now, the crucial point. Has the lost Book of Solomon really disappeared? Or does it still exist, waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered? Perhaps the fragments in the grimoires are just clues left for those who dare seek. To unravel this mystery, we need to go beyond the book and investigate Solomon's temple itself, a monument that, according to some, also holds long-forgotten secrets. Imagine yourself standing in front of the legendary Temple of Solomon, a structure so monumental that it still resonates today as a symbol of spiritual and architectural power. According to 1 Kings 6, its construction followed geometric and mathematical patterns so precise that they seemed to transcend the knowledge of the time. But what if the temple was more than a place of worship? Some theories suggest that it may have been a kind of energy machine, a circuit designed to channel cosmic or terrestrial forces. A bold but fascinating idea. Kabbalistic texts, such as the Zohar, associate the design of the temple with the Sephirot of the Tree of Life, a spiritual map that connects the physical and metaphysical worlds. Imagine the columns of Jachim and Boaz not just as decorative elements, but as symbolic and functional antennas, capable of capturing and distributing invisible energies. This interpretation is reinforced by similarities with other ancient structures, such as the pyramids in Egypt, which also spark theories about their use as energy catalysts. Would the temple be a bridge between earth and the divine, a physical channel to the sacred? Furthermore, the location chosen for the temple, Mount Moriah, does not seem to have been a coincidence. This is the same place where Abraham would have offered Isaac in sacrifice, a point loaded with spiritual and energetic significance. Ancient civilizations believed that certain locations possessed special telluric energy, and perhaps Solomon knew this. By building the temple at this strategic point, he would not only be creating a space for worship, but harnessing the natural forces of the earth to amplify Israel's spiritual and mystical power. What is even more intriguing is that the temple's secrets appear to have been carefully hidden after its destruction. Ancient manuscripts speak of artifacts buried beneath its ruins, including the Ark of the Covenant, which, in itself, is already shrouded in mystery and legend. Some theorists believe that these secrets were protected by secret societies, such as the Templars, and that knowledge about the true purpose of the temple was deliberately excluded from religious texts to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Now, think with me. What if the temple was more than a symbol of faith? What if he represented forbidden knowledge, a fusion of spirituality and science that defies everything we know? Perhaps this is the reason why his physical disappearance and why his secrets remain buried in history. But to understand the depth of Solomon's impact, we need to explore his connection to traditions that shaped esotericism and alchemy. After all, was he the precursor of these secret practices? Imagine Solomon not just as a wise king, but as the keeper of mystical secrets that would echo through the centuries. His teachings, some say, formed the basis of Hermeticism and alchemy, two esoteric traditions that sought to understand and manipulate the forces of the universe. In Solomon's clavicle, we see the fusion of geometric symbols, invocations, and rituals that, interestingly, resonate with the Hermetic principles of as above, so below. Could Solomon have been the missing link between ancient spirituality and the practices that shaped secret societies like the Rosicrucians and Freemasons? Alchemical practices, often associated with the transmutation of metals into gold, have deeper roots in spiritual purification, the search for inner gold, enlightenment. Solomon, with his reputation as a spiritual alchemist, would have left a legacy that went beyond his political and religious exploits, and the grimoires attributed to him, such as Solomon's clavicle, contain detailed instructions for rituals that promise not only mastery over spirits, but also access to forbidden knowledge reserved for a few. Could this be what inspired occult societies to claim their heritage? The Rosicrucian tradition, for example, sees Solomon as an archetype of the enlightened mystic, one who achieves union with the divine through esoteric knowledge. And the Freemasons, with their symbolism and rituals that evoke Solomon's temple, seem to not only preserve, but also reinterpret its teachings. These secret societies, throughout history, have been accused of persecuting this knowledge excluded from the masses, keeping it under tight control. But are these practices really a reflection of what Solomon taught, or an attempt to rebuild something lost? What makes this connection even more intriguing is Solomon's influence on traditions from various cultures. His name appears in Islamic, Kabbalistic, and Christian texts, always associated with wisdom, but also with power over the occult. In Hermeticism, we find clear parallels with the 7 principles attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, principles that also resonate with Solomon's accounts of the 7 heavens and the 7 demons in the Testament of Solomon. Would he have accessed universal knowledge, shared by apparently disconnected cultures? And so, the inevitable question arises: if Solomon's hermetic and alchemical legacy was so influential, why was it relegated to the domain of secret societies and not popular knowledge? Perhaps the answer lies in the idea that certain truths are too dangerous to be revealed openly. To unravel this, we need to look at an enigmatic figure who played a crucial role in this narrative: the Queen of Sheba. After all, what was the true purpose of his alliance with Solomon? Imagine the scene. The majestic Queen of Sheba, coming from distant lands, crosses deserts and mountains, guided by a mysterious purpose. She arrives in Jerusalem, where Solomon welcomes her with the pomp and ceremony of a meeting of powerful minds. But what was really at stake in that visit? What did the queen take back to her homeland? The traditional story speaks of an exchange of gifts and wisdom, but what if there was something deeper, something related to secret knowledge that was somehow hidden from the general public? The Kebra Nagast, an Ethiopian text that tells the story of the Queen of Sheba and her relationship with Solomon, suggests that she not only brought gifts, but also took with her something of great value: the Ark of the Covenant. But what is most fascinating is what this text mentions about the esoteric mysteries that Solomon supposedly taught the queen. She would have been initiated into the king's mysteries, absorbing forbidden knowledge about the divine and the invisible forces that govern the universe. Perhaps this exchange was not just a political or religious alliance, but an alliance of hidden power in which Solomon shared with her secrets that defied the norms of the time. The connection between Solomon and the Queen of Sheba also resonates with ancient traditions of occult wisdom that circulated throughout the Middle East and beyond. Sabbath, identified with present-day Ethiopia, had deep ties with ancient cultures, such as the Egyptian and Mesopotamian, which already practiced secret rituals and had an advanced understanding of cosmic mysteries. The queen was not just a sovereign, but a potential guardian of esoteric knowledge that crossed borders and times. Could she have returned to her homeland with more than the Ark? Could she have taken with her a hidden teaching that should never be revealed to the general public? The impact of this alliance goes beyond the physical and political borders of Jerusalem and Sheba. The exchange of wisdom between Solomon and the Queen of Sheba was perhaps what fueled future currents of mysticism and esotericism. She was initiated into the mysteries not just of Solomon, but of a tradition that would span the centuries and influence the formation of secret societies, such as the Rosicrucians, who would later claim Solomon's heritage. Perhaps it was the power of the Ark, with its connection to the divine, that gave the queen this initiated status. Or perhaps she became a mediator of hidden knowledge between different cultures. So here's the big question. Was this alliance the key to the spread of occult practices that would spread across the world? If Solomon truly possessed this forbidden knowledge, did he only share it with the Queen of Sheba or other travelers from the ancient world? The answer to these questions may lie in alchemy and the esoteric rituals that would emerge in the following generations. But to fully understand the impact of this exchange, we need to look at the role of alchemy in Solomon, a fundamental aspect of deciphering the secrets of occult knowledge. After all, the true nature of Solomon's power is still waiting to be fully revealed. Imagine the mind of Solomon, a mind that, on the one hand, is recognized for its divine wisdom, and, on the other, for its mysterious practices that touch on the occult. Solomon's alchemy, with its association with spiritual gold, goes beyond conventional interpretations of metal transmutation. According to occult texts, Solomon's true alchemy involved not just the transformation of base metals into gold, but the transmutation of the human soul, an inner purification that reflected spiritual enlightenment. But what if this is just the tip of the iceberg? What if Solomon had access to even more advanced knowledge, capable of transforming matter in ways that we can barely understand today? Grimoires attributed to Solomon, such as Solomon's clavicle, detail rituals and practices that, at first glance, may appear magical, but which, through a more critical lens, can be read as a form of ancient science, perhaps even physical alchemy. Real, historical accounts and occult texts speak of a secret that Solomon had for transforming common substances into gold. But would this actually be possible with the technologies and practices of his time? Or was this gold actually a metaphor for something deeper, the ability to access the true essence of life, a superior understanding of the universe that few have the ability to achieve? And here comes a fascinating point. Alchemy, as understood by secret societies, was much more than a laboratory game. It involved understanding the forces that govern the cosmos and the ability to manipulate these forces for the good of the individual and humanity. Perhaps Solomon, with his supernatural power and extraordinary wisdom, had mastered this art to a level where his alchemy was, in fact, an advanced technology for manipulating energy and matter, something so beyond our understanding that it would be considered magical. What if he had learned these secrets from ancient sources, such as Sumerian texts or knowledge from cultures that were ahead of their time? Indeed, the link between alchemy and Kabbalistic texts, such as the Zohar, suggests that Solomon not only knew the secrets of spiritual transformation, but also the secrets of physical transmutation. Gold, in this context, would be more than a symbol of material wealth. It would represent the spiritual perfection he sought to achieve. However, what if this ability to manipulate matter was not just symbolic, but something he could actually do? What would it mean for the modern world to discover that Solomon and those who followed him possessed technology capable of altering the structure of matter? The real question, then, is not whether or not Solomon had the power to create gold, but what he knew about the fundamental nature of the universe. Would Solomon's alchemy be a way to achieve what we call quantum science today? Did he somehow know how to manipulate cosmic energy and transform it? Perhaps he was not just a wise king, but a master of knowledge so profound that he left us fragments of something we still cannot fully understand. To find out more, we need to understand the pact he made with God or other entities, and how it shaped his mystical journey. Imagine Solomon in his prime, being hailed as the wisest man on earth, possessing wisdom that seemed to come from a divine source. However, something in his story seems less clear. Although he asked God for wisdom in 1 Kings 3:9-12, what follows in his life raises suspicions. Solomon not only invoked spirits and built altars to foreign deities, 1 Kings 11:4-8, but was described as one who, in his own temple, performed rituals that suggest a link with forces beyond what traditional Christianity would consider divine. Had Solomon really made a pact with God, or was he seduced by entities of another origin? Entities that could have given him the forbidden knowledge and supernatural powers that he demonstrated? The biblical texts are clear in showing us that although Solomon was favored by God, he also strayed from his will by allowing the worship of foreign gods to infiltrate his court. This raises a question. Would Solomon's wisdom have come only from God, as he claimed, or would he have accessed hidden knowledge that was carefully guarded and transmitted by other entities? Could these entities have non-celestial origins, but interdimensional or extraterrestrial ones, with a more mysterious, perhaps even manipulative purpose? The figure of Solomon is full of paradoxes. On the one hand, he was described as the great ruler of Israel, protected by divine wisdom. On the other, his quest for power and control led him to practices that cannot be easily reconciled with his relationship with the God of Israel. If Solomon truly had such profound access to mystical knowledge, perhaps this access was facilitated by other forces that were more interested in using him as an intermediary than in guiding him spiritually. Would he have signed a hidden pact with these entities in exchange for power and wisdom that would otherwise not be within the reach of a mere mortal? The idea that Solomon could have made secret pacts with forces outside the Jewish tradition is not new in esoteric studies. Many mystics and occultists throughout history have suggested that figures like Solomon had access to knowledge that transcended established religious boundaries, accessing ancient traditions and perhaps even technologies from other dimensions. What if Solomon had been not just a king, but a mediator between worlds, operating under the guidance of forces that transcend our material reality? This thought is disturbing, but also fascinating, suggesting that Solomon's true secret is hidden between the lines of the Bible and the mystical traditions that developed from his figure. And so, we return to the big question. Was Solomon a man chosen by God, or was he just a pawn in a much bigger game? If he really had access to this forbidden knowledge, then perhaps Solomon's true pact is even more enigmatic than we imagine. And to unearth this secret, perhaps we need to delve deeper into Solomon's keys, the tools of control he used to manipulate the reality around him, and perhaps understand more about the nature of the spiritual pacts he made. But first of all, we need to understand what these keys really mean. Imagine, for a moment, that Solomon's keys are not just magical instruments, but powerful tools for controlling the collective consciousness. In occult texts and grimoires attributed to him, such as Solomon's clavicle, we find detailed descriptions of rituals and invocations, many of which are intended to summon spirits or obtain hidden wisdom. But what if these rituals were not just spiritual practices, but forms of psychological and social manipulation? Were the keys of Solomon really a way to influence the minds and realities of the people around them, creating invisible control over them? The clavicle of Solomon, often cited as a manual of magic and invocation, could be seen as a code for creating and shaping realities, not only on the spiritual plane, but also on the physical. Many occult scholars suggest that the keys, with their complex rituals and hermetic symbols, were intended not only to invoke spirits, but also to manipulate universal energies, affecting the minds and perceptions of everyone around them. In doing so, Solomon could have created a controlled reality where he, as leader, had access to power that transcended the normal limits of human experience. But what does this mean for society as a whole? Some conspiracy theory researchers claim that throughout history, these keys have been used by secret elites to shape the collective consciousness. Control over the human mind has been a constant quest for centuries, and Solomon's grimoires may have been an early example of how this manipulation could be carried out systematically and effectively. If the keys truly had the power to alter the perception of the masses, would it be possible that secret societies like the Freemasons or Rosicrucians use these same methods to create invisible control over populations? And otherwise, would knowledge of Solomon's keys have been reserved for a minority who knew how to use these rituals to manipulate not only reality, but history itself? And what does this say about spiritual and political power? Solomon, who ruled with divine wisdom, perhaps saw the keys as an extension of that wisdom, allowing him to not only rule over his kingdom, but also over the perception of the people within it. The real question then is, are these keys simply spiritual tools, or, as the boldest scholars suggest, do they represent an attempt to control something much deeper and more dangerous, the very fabric of our perceived reality? Would Solomon have been a master not only of magic, but of a much more advanced technique of psychological and spiritual manipulation that still, in some way, influences the holders of this knowledge to this day? The connection between Solomon's occult knowledge and secret societies throughout history raises even more questions. If he truly possessed the keys to manipulating reality, what would be the reason for keeping them secret? The keys of Solomon could be the centerpiece of a struggle to preserve power and control, with the holders of this knowledge shaping the future in ways that remain hidden from the general public. To fully understand the impact of the keys, we need to go deeper into the issue of astrology and Solomon's cosmic knowledge, as perhaps he used the influence of the stars and celestial movements to further strengthen his power over the collective consciousness. Imagine Solomon, the wisest man of his time, not only governing based on political decisions, but also using a deep knowledge of the stars and the cosmic forces that govern the universe. In 1 Kings 4:29-34, we read about Solomon's vast wisdom, which extended beyond the boundaries of politics, even encompassing the understanding of the heavenly bodies and their influence on the earth. But was Solomon simply observing the stars with a mystical and religious eye? Or was he applying an advanced science, perhaps a lost science, which today we can only glimpse through the lens of astrology or astrotheology? Solomon, like many other wise men of antiquity, saw the cosmos as a living entity, where the stars and planets were not just distant celestial bodies, but powerful forces that affected human life and the nature of reality. Solomon's astrology would not just be a method of predicting the future, but perhaps a deeper knowledge capable of aligning events on Earth with cosmic movements, creating universal harmony. He could have been using a type of advanced astrology, which combined not only the observation of the stars, but also an understanding of the energies that circulate in the cosmos, something that was lost over time, but which perhaps was the true basis of the wisdom of Solomon. This cosmic knowledge could have been used by Solomon to align the Jerusalem temple with specific astronomical phenomena, creating a direct connection between the earthly and divine realms. The idea of aligning large structures with the sky is not new. Ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians, Mayans, and Incas, also built pyramids and temples according to the constellations in search of a deeper understanding of the cosmos. Solomon, as a spiritual and political leader, would have been one of the first to apply this type of knowledge to create a space where earth and heaven meet, a true point of intersection between the material world and the divine. And here's the mystery. If Solomon possessed such an advanced understanding of astronomy and astrology, why wasn't this knowledge passed on to later generations in a more explicit way? Perhaps because, like many other hidden and forbidden knowledge, it was too dangerous a power to be left within the reach of the masses. It may be that religious and political elites throughout history decided to hide this knowledge, as it had the potential to change the established power structure. What Solomon knew about the stars and their influences may have been intentionally excluded from public discourse to prevent other figures with this knowledge from destabilizing control of religious and governmental institutions. So what can we conclude about Solomon's connection to astronomy and astrology? It is possible that he was one of the last great masters to combine this knowledge with spirituality in such a powerful way, creating a fusion of science and mysticism that was almost incomprehensible to subsequent generations. Perhaps Solomon's true power lay not only in his wisdom, but in his ability to read and use the messages encoded in the movement of the stars. And if that were true, then Solomon's legacy, his mastery over spirits, occult knowledge, and even cosmic forces, could be even more vast and mysterious than we can imagine. If this video touched something inside you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There is much more to be revealed until the next video.